today's poem is going to be Snake. Snake is here. This poem, is not in that textual form I made, not in the shape of word or PDF, so that is why it's a little bit blurry. So, but I can read this for you, and we shall be doing this poem with reference to small passages that I have selected. For example, the very first passage says, "It was summer in the hills, and I was 8. The cottage we had rented for the season was 100 feet below road level, and a long serpentine, gravelly path, pocked with stones, led to it." Now, that is the start of the poem, and according to the poet, the timing is that of the summer, but in the summertime, even in the hilly area, the time is very good. He says that is why they had come in the hilly area. They had rented out a cottage, a very small cottage, in which he was living with his family, with his people, and it was the situation or the location of this cottage was also below 100 feet, almost below the level of the road. It means that it was situated between the depth of the mountain valleys and the road. In between, it was somewhere present. And so there was a path which came to this cottage from the road, and its path had the quality of being a gravel type of path. It was not that paved path. It was having also the shape of a serpentine. I mean, it was zigzagging type of path, and small and big stones were present there, and that was the situation. So one can very easily imagine that the poet is presenting to us a situation of the summer season where he's present in the hilly area in a cottage, and that is cottage is situated at a place very near to the road but 100 feet at least below, and a gravel path, as most of the time these paths are there inside the hilly areas, that is there, and he is living and spending his time there. He first of all talks about the not the hill or not the mountain, not about the cottage, but he talks more about the path. The path is like a serpentine, and path is like a zigzag path, and this gravel path is the small stone, the big stones, and that path is something important in the poem. When we read the word serpentine, it appears to us perhaps it is the title is connected to this, but it's not the case. Title is connected to something else. So far, we can have an understanding that the poet is presenting to us the imagery of the summer season in the hilly area, and that is increasing its beauty when he talks about the cottage situated 100 feet below the road. It means it's quite separated from the normal routine of the people. It's below 100 feet, and even for those 100 feet, there was a path which led to it, and that's why in the summer season the poet was living there. So, what he was doing and what is the activity, how the title snake is related to that we need to talk about still when we go deeper into the poem. So, let's go to the next passage of the poem. It says, on a sunny day, on sunny days, I rolled a ball down the path from the very top, and I would run after it, heel weighted, to try and catch it before it got too far. The point I had caught it earliest was marked with a boulder with white veins. I was furious because the record still stood at the first day's attempt. Afternoons, while the others were away riding, playing cards, picnicking, I would take up the ball and make my dozen tries. I had limited myself to this number. To be fair to the record, half an hour later I would come back to my room, put away the ball. So that is the description of the next scene which the poet tries to draw. According to him, he used to roll the ball from the top of the road towards this cottage, and on the path the ball used to come very simply downwards because the speed was greater, and he tried to follow the ball in order to save and secure his ball also, in order to play and continue his game also. And one of the mission was to reach before the ball can reach, and there was a boulder, according to him, a mud boulder on the path, and that mud boulder could stop the ball, and he expected most of the time the ball would stop there. He tried to reach before the time the ball reaches there, but each time he failed. Ball reaches faster than he could, so he's indicating to the speed of the ball because of the gravity of the earth that it pulled it down so speedily, so fastly that whatever tries he would make, he was unable to reach that place before the ball would reach. He says that this target was fixed, the mount was fixed, and he's got the white lines. The white lines will be that of the line also, but most expectedly, it is going to be the snow lines which are still existing there. He says that when other people were sleeping at that time, he tried to make the attempt of reaching before the ball, but each time, whatever attempts he made, the record remained the same on the very first day and very last day also, that still it was difficult to overcross this ball. He would most of the time reach very late, and the ball would reach earlier, and later on he would reach there. So every afternoon he tried, in the morning he tried, and when the people were playing at cards at that time he tried. In order to save himself from humility, he would try to do that, but each time the ball would reach first of all. So this is the game which the poet would play at that time when he was residing in such a court in the summer season, and that game is the childhood game. And that is the passion or the kind of interest of the poet also, when the children have the interest with the balls, with the footballs, with the round things, and he wants to capture that, he wants to win over that, but most of the time he would fail that. So it is the kind of poem where the poet is reflecting the childhood which he spent among the mountains, the cottages of mountains, the waters of the mountains, the trees and the valleys and the paths and the gravels, everything he remembers. So it's a type of autobiographical element also present there, because the poet lived among the mountains definitely, and he probably is reflecting how he used to play with that. So it's a childhood kind of description which he's giving, and the happiness which he enjoyed. Is it not the kind of Wordsworthian description of the child in Prelude Part 1, where he talks about the games which he played with his playmates, and sometime alone also, sometime with nature also, and that is the kind of thing which poet is also describing, though not in the same sense as Wordsworth is describing. It's a game here only, and Wordsworth would describe many other things, especially the psychological influence of nature. Possibly the psychological influence is also hidden somewhere inside this poem also, that we need to discover, the reader needs to discover and go deep into the lines, but apparently it is the kind of childhood games that he's having with the ball and with the mountain and with the gravel. Is it not reflective of Robert Frost, the American poet, that he also talked about the childhood days when he lived among the trees and the kind of grounds and kind of village and country area there he used to play also, there he used to carry on his games also. And is it not the description of that? It reflects just like Robert Frost, how the Pakistani poet is talking about the beautiful area and the places which he resided. So in that way, the second part of the poem also goes to talk about his childhood games, how he used to play. So it's very much close to his own life, which he probably wanted to spend and probably spent, and now is telling to his readers also. The poem therefore takes us into the hilly area where a boy is playing, and the scene is very important and beautiful, and that boy is playing with the ball is coming down and he's running behind and trying to reach before that, but immediately cannot. So what a fascinating scene of the boyhood has been drawn by the poet. Let's go to the next one, next part of the poem. It says here in the third part, it can be read, scrape the mud. We need to take some of the lines from the back. It's from here to my room. Yes, I would come back to my room, put away the ball, scrape the mud from my knees, and shouldering my roller skates, start off for the rink, passing up the boulders with the white veins. I would give it a baleful, eye-cornered glance, but this particular time it was towards the end of our stay. The ball simply kept rolling and rolling, and I charged desperately after it, heedless of the menace of being tripped by a stone, and in places I remember it could have been dangerous, but I was afraid of losing the ball and was perhaps annoyed by its elusiveness. And then he says, anyway, I followed it. And second part, if we try to include a little bit with that as fast as I could, when the expected happened, I turned sharper than usual and disappeared over the edge into a khud. And luck would have it, it was the deepest, darkest, deadliest khud of all in the high hill town. But I was so mad at that stubborn ball, I only hesitated a moment, then started down. There was no path at all, for who would want to go down that sinister hillside? Only a boy who has lost a ball or his mind, or both. Gripping the nameless evergreens which covered the slope, I kept going down, and the slope seemed endless. It was clammy and dark like all the woods, but I was blinded by passion and even forgot it was known to be snake infested. So that is here the poet takes us to the third part of the poem, and it's really very interesting. And it can be readily compared with Kubla Khan, the poem written by Coleridge. In that poem also, we find that the poet is listening to the sound of the water. That water is gushing out of the chasm which is present in the mountainside, and trees are growing, so mysterious situation is created there. And ultimately the poet discovers the voices of his forefathers. And the almost same thing has been talked about here, that the ball was expected to roll down, strike with the boulder, and ultimately it can get lost into certain areas which are unknown to the poet, and the poet didn't want to go there because some animals possibly can be there. And the same happened one day, that the ball struck the boulder, and ultimately it went into those spaces and places which were very difficult to see and find, because these were unexplored, and moreover it was said and believed that there is some kind of snakes or the other animals living there, and that's why the poet wanted to avoid it. But however, this was the problem, that the ball had gone and he didn't want to lose his ball, so that is why he would definitely want to acquire that. So he looked for his ball here and there, ultimately reached into the deepest of the holes or the spaces present in the mountain, and in order to look for his ball. And he was fearful also, he was very much upset also why the ball is gone there, but the passion for the ball was forcing him to go down and find it out. And in his search he reached to a very close place where there could be fear also, there could be problematic things as well, there could be dangerous animals as well, but the poet had reached there. So in order to see what has happened, we need to attach the next part of the poem also, and that is here. I was there at the bottom of the wood and began to look for the ball, poking with sticks that I broke off a bush, when a snake slithered past me into a cleft. It was dark there, but not too dark to recognize that slimy form. I was petrified. I know I did not scream when life returned to my limbs. I started clambering up the slope with a haste, and that made things worse, forgetful of the ball, forgetting everything but the desire to be out again. So ultimately, what happens, which the poet was expecting, and which the poet was fearful, that he was looking for his ball and he had found out a stick which is broken from a bush, and he was poking his ball, he had seen his ball and wanted to bring it out of the hole, but it was difficult to do so. So that is why entry was difficult. With the help of a stick, he was trying to bring the ball out, but he could not. And ultimately what he saw was a snake, a slimy thing which moved out. Instead of attacking the boy, it moved out. But it created a lot of fear in the mind of the boy. It was so much fearful for him that he started to tremble. He started to think that he should come out of that place without thinking of his ball. So he left the ball and ultimately came outside of that. While he was climbing backward from his place, he was seeing and thinking what he should do, what kind of arrangements he can make in order to come out of that. That is why it was becoming a big problem for him, and that problem he wanted to resolve definitely, but it was really difficult for him to resolve. So he wanted to see the things which possibly may be attached with the snake. He wanted to see more, but he could not, and so that is why he just came into his room, and he wanted to relax himself and become out of that fear. And that is why he says that he would be talking, definitely he would be trying to avoid these things in the past time he thought about, but he could not do so, and ultimately the same thing happened. And that's what the poem is going to end. When we reach very close to the last section, let's see if it's loaded. The last section is not loaded, so I will be taking some time in order to load the last section. So people, what you are seeing here is definitely the thing which the people would like to see, how these things can be done, what are the sources which are attached with that. For example, if you see, you can see very clearly that ball finding was the passion of the boy, but he was unable to reach beneath the ball until and unless he was to face a snake. And that snake definitely appeared there, and this was something which was very much disturbing for the poet. He was so much disturbed, so much upset, that he decided, instead of remaining there, he decided to go and come out of that. Now, that is the last part of the poem which I shall be reading for you. So let's go to that part and read it. it cannot be loaded so far early. That's why it may take some time, but I will read it for you. It says, somewhere along the way, I must have wept, for my cheeks were tears stained. When I reached the top, quickly I entered the cottage by the back door, went straight to the bathroom and washed, and after changing clothes, picked up my skates and left. When I reached the boulder with the white veins, I wrenched it from its place like a bad tooth and carried it painfully, for it was heavy, to the spot where the ball vanished, and heaved it down to keep the lost ball company forever and ever. So, here is the ending part of the poem, and that ending part says that the poet, first of all, reached to his place, the washroom, and where he washed and became relaxed and got some energy. He says that when he had seen the snake and when he found that he's helpless in bringing his ball up, he was so upset that he wept and cried also. That's why he washed his face, got his stake, and ultimately came down. And then he reaches the same place once again and tries to get the ball out. And
it's
that's
13
really
hours
difficult for him. But there are the two versions now becoming clear. One is that he got the ball and ultimately continued to play. So that's why he says to keep the company forever and ever. But actually, the thing is that he couldn't get his ball back. And that is why he thought that the ball has gone down into the game, into the image, and has become the permanent part of that nature. So that's why he's forgetting all that. So therefore, this is the kind of poem we have read today. The snake gives only one entry into the poem. It disappears also, just in 3-4 lines it comes out, but the whole thing is talked about in the sense of that. It's like the discovery and exploration, ultimately finding out something and later on losing that thing as well. On the one hand, the ball is the passion. That is the kind of thing which the poet would like to have all the time with him. On the other hand, fearful image of the snake is there, which had disappeared. So it goes to give a little bit of the message, not only the environment, which is beautiful, not only the biography, which is beautiful, but also one more thing that must be talked about. It is about the passion. When you lead your passion, when you follow your passion, so haphazardly, let's say, so powerfully, so emotionally, at that time the results can be dangerous as well. So in that way, the poet wanted to get his ball, but he found out the snake as well. So it's not only exploring and finding all aspects of nature, not only beauty and beauty appearing, but also dangerous aspects of nature like the snake. And on the other hand, it's also telling the story of the childhood of that time. So this is what the poet has tried to talk to us in that sense, that everybody is feeling happy about that. And when we read that poem, we come to know what kind of imagery can be there. It's beautiful imagery in the poem. That is, first of all, the summer season, the cottage, the road. And secondly, it's a mound with the white lines. And thirdly, it's a boy who's playing with the football. And fourthly, the image of the could the word has been used. I'm imagining possibly this is the word could of Punjabi or that of Urdu, but it's an empty space which the poet is trying to tell us, that imagery of that place, how the snake comes out of that, and later on the boy is weeping and crying to show his love for his ball and not finding it, and after that ultimately making it permanent part of the nature. So in the end of the whole thing, everything is the part of the nature. The boy, the cottage, the paths, the empty spaces, everything are the nature. Some are the paths and things which are good, and some are beautiful, some are not that beautiful. So in this way, the poet has reflected about the way he lived in this hilly area and the way he provided different parts, explained them summarily, add the writing lines by quoting them, and ultimately you should also talk about the poet and then say something about the comparisons, the images, or the symbols that have been used here. The symbol of snake is there, symbol of that mound is there, and the skate is also there. It's a modern symbol that it can make us travel fast, and the gravel paths, and all these things can be symbolically interpreted. And after that, talk about the lines of the poem. Stanza formation is very difficult to make here. It's not that regular type of stanza as the other points can have. It's the like Parveen Shakar's poetry, it's lines and lines. It's a personal experience which has been publicly shown, which has been told to everybody, like Wordsworth. But the formation of poetry is not like Wordsworth. It's very much different. It's Pakistani in nature. And also you can add the Pakistani touch by saying what are the things which have been talked about, which are Pakistani in nature. You may discover the words, you may discover the structures of the language, you may discover the simplicity of language, you may discover some of the images of the boy and the places that can be connected with Pakistan and Pakistani culture and Pakistani spaces and geography. So in that way, the poem can be turned into a very good critical appreciation as well. In the end of the poem, I do not fail to conclude it by saying how it is good, how it's bad, and how it is very much related to Pakistan and very much related to the natural imagery as it is found. So wild imagery has been shown along with the man-made structures also. So in that way, it may be discussed, and that can make this very good. So far, if you have liked it, it adds something to your knowledge. Do not fail to hit the like button and subscribe button. This session was live. If you have been unable to watch it, it will be displayed on YouTube after some time, and it will be also shown to Facebook too. So far, till we meet the next video, keep happy, keep enjoying, and keep peaceful as well.